Hey, I'm Laura Whitmore with the Women's International Music Network, and we're here at the Adorama store in New York City today to talk about diversity and what to do when you have adversity about diversity. And of course, we have women on our panel because, from my perspective, we talk a lot about gender issues and gender diversity. But before we get going and I introduce the panel, I want to just share a few statistics that I pulled out of our faithful internet recently. According to the New York Times in January of this year, in an analysis of the top 600 songs in the last 5 years on their Hot 100, which I guess is mostly pop, but I'm guessing all the other genres will fall in line with this. The study found that of 1,239 performing artists, 22.4% of them were women. The numbers are much lower among people behind the scenes. Of the 2,767 songwriters on those songs, only 12% of those were women. And as far as the producers of those songs, only 2% of them were women in that same period. In addition, when we look at things like the Grammys, which, as you may have noticed, their director and leader kind of stuck his foot in his mouth recently, telling women they needed to step up more. But of the 899 individuals who have been nominated for the last 6 Grammy ceremonies, 90.7% of them were men, and 9.3% were women. It's hard to step up when the door's closed. So we're going to talk a little bit about breaking down those doors, what we need to do, and what we can do together. So before we start, I want to introduce our panel. I'd like each of you guys to say your name and talk a little bit about your role in the music industry. So Ariel.
Hi, I'm Ariel Hyatt. My role is I run a digital marketing agency and PR firm, and I help artists with branding and social media and messaging. And my role is also sort of constant cheerleader. And I love helping artists. I've written a lot of articles to help them and books.
Asha.
Hi, I'm Asha Piper. I'm from Canada, Toronto, and I'm a musician. My background is in jazz studies. I'm a singer-songwriter, piano player, vocalist, and I'm working on my first EP at the moment. I also teach music, vocal and piano and theory and arranging.
My name is Erica Lewis. I currently work at Live Nation. I'm in their media and sponsorships groups, but I also have a business the past 8 years. Myself and 2 friends have an organization called Easy Mo Breezy, and we do Southern hip hop events, parties specifically, and some concerts around the country.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, I'm Laura Whitmore. I run the Women's International Music Network. I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I have a marketing agency that focuses on the music industry as well. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I won't tell you how much over, but... So let's chat a little bit about our experiences with gender and diversity. Have you guys had personal experiences, negative or positive, relating to gender and diversity in the music industry, and how did you deal with those experiences? Does anyone want to jump in with a thought on that?
I got sexually harassed last week at the, this is kind of awesome actually. This is like sort of wow. Here's the wow. Okay. The event was the Women of Influence Awards, which I sit on the chair. I'm a chairperson. And a fellow chairperson said something so wildly inappropriate that I am still sort of trying to think about what type of response is appropriate. So even in my mid-40s, as someone who's been in the business for so many years, it wasn't even like when I was really young or something crazy happened because we were drunk at a bar. It was like an advocate and a colleague at probably the most inappropriate event you could choose to have that kind of dialogue with another person. So yes, last Friday.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Myself as the experience that stands out to me the most was I was a young person in the industry many decades ago, and I was at a conference, and there was a head of a company that I dealt with that was an iconic person in the industry. Like, you'd all know who he was if I said his name, and he literally like groped me in front of people while we were standing around talking, and I was like so flabbergasted that I like walked away. I didn't know what to do, and I've always regretted not standing up for myself. But I think at that point in my career, I just didn't know how to respond, and none of my colleagues stood up for me, which was kind of heartbreaking, you know. So my way of dealing with it was walking away, but I later complained to someone in my company, because I worked for a company that had like a human resources department and, you know, vice presidents and everything, and they literally just brushed it right under the rug. I mean, this was probably, you know, over 20 years ago. Not that that's an excuse, but it was like, oh, they didn't want to upset this guy, so they just kind of like said, you know, he's like that, and that was
That's called the Charlie Rose defense. The bathrobe.
Exactly. And you know, I've had other like lesser, probably upsetting experiences because I won't take that anymore. But I, at that moment, was really bummed out because I felt like I was finally starting to get somewhere. These guys wanted to hang out with me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm with the cool kids. And then now I was like, I got to stay away from this guy now.
It's like a bait and switch, but a bad bait and a worse switch.
It was, because they were like, oh, Laura, you should come with us to England to do this project. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I'm going to do it. I've been finally asked to be like part of that. And then I was like, oh, forget it. I don't want to be part of that now. You guys have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's similar. I guess as a performer, there was a lot. If I hear one more vocalist joke in my life, I will explode. About, you know, the only women in, especially when I was in university, being vocalists specifically, and thus being less musicians really, despite the fact that we took the same classes, like same theory arranging classes, same ear training classes at 8 a.m. But just not being seen as technically qualified, which I think actually goes to the stats you were talking about, women in the industry, in particular behind the scenes, that we're not kind of viewed as being capable of being technical, I guess. So there's a lot of that, a lot of like weird body and like presentation stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys heard this, it was in Toronto, so I don't know if the news made it here, probably wasn't a big deal, but there was this orchestra that was kind of partly funded, I think, by the city of Toronto, and if I'm getting this wrong, sorry, internet. But essentially, I had been a vocalist of this and then quit because it was such a toxic environment. But the guy who would like literally send out emails or comment on your appearance, being like, make sure you like don't look too fat in the dress, and make sure you like just constant comments on the vocalist's appearances and what was and was not acceptable, and it was like pretty blatant and pretty gross. So,
and he did it over email.
He did it over email. He did it in rehearsal, in person. It was so just outrageous, and you're like, okay, I think I'm done with this. And then it became public, I think this year or last year or something like that, and he was subsequently either dismissed or stepped down, or the organization was disbanded. Yeah. So that's that kind of stuff.
I mean, I feel like I've been in the professional industry for over 20-some years, and to the original question of gender and diversity, for me, I feel like it's played a part in every experience I have, you know, in every step of my career. Some of them positive and some of them negative, right? So I bring a different perspective to the table and to the conversation in some situations, and that's always been the case. And as I've become older, I feel more confident in kind of putting that voice forward and being able to be the one that has the different point of view in the room, even if no one else wants to hear it. Where when I was younger, I would just kind of, you know, think it, but I wouldn't be able to say it. And sometimes there's an adverse reaction to that, you know, and I think sometimes the truth can be very disheartening, and I think sometimes people take things personally that aren't meant to be personal, right? So as a woman or as a person of color, if I bring to your attention that there's a lack of one or the other in the room, it doesn't mean that I'm judging or questioning you. It might just be a blind spot for you. And so it's my attempt to help you with that blind spot. And there's no judgment there. It's just how you handle the information once that blind spot is revealed. That's what's, what I'm looking and hoping comes out of the conversation. So, yeah, I mean, throughout my career, I feel like there's not a woman in this industry in the past year and a half or 2 years that hasn't kind of reflected on their career and wondered, was that harassment, or was that, or that was harassment and now it's been validated, and whatever the case has been. I definitely went through that. And personally, I think that there's some things that I wasn't necessarily offended by, and I feel like for whatever reason at that time in my life, either I felt like the intention behind it wasn't malicious, or I was just too naive, which it probably was more of the latter in the situation. But yeah, I always say, I feel like my color and my gender enters the room before my intelligence does in many occasions. And I'm very aware of that. And I don't make any apologies for it. It's what, to me, in many ways allows me to stand out and have a different point of view, so that I don't necessarily always have to sound like the majority in the room.
It's interesting that one of the points you brought up, for a long time I wrote for Guitar World magazine, and I was the only woman on staff there writing. And I wrote a blog that focused on female guitar players, and I would do, panels and other workshops, and I would multiple times get the question, how can you work with those people? They have women in bikinis holding guitars, and they're so sexist and all that. And my response was always, number one, you should see how many women submit that stuff. Like they're submitting to be there. They want that attention, and I'm not judging that. Like, that's their choice. But number two, so because they do that, I shouldn't give all other women who are like legitimately, great players a voice in that huge platform. Like, to me, that wasn't the way to address that. I'd rather be there and have a presence there and show another point of view than just say, oh yeah, they're sexist, I'm leaving. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And honestly, like, a lot of the guys that I worked with there have really changed their outlook, and that magazine is a lot different now. So I feel like I helped that, and that's important to me. And I feel like a lot of us can do that too. It's just how you look at it, I want to talk a little bit about that, because the music industry, I've been trying to think, like, why is it that the film industry has sort of become so galvanized with their effort, and the music industry a little bit less so? And I think part of it is that we don't have like a central organization really, like, that's spearheading the conversation. We are a lot of freelancers who work at night and work in like these circumstances where, we're alone in a studio, we're alone in a dark club or whatever it is. Do you guys have any thoughts about, how can we respond to sexist behavior without being like blackballed, sort of like, oh yeah, we're not going to work with her anymore, she's not cool. Like, how do you deal with that?
We all look at you. Well,
I'm about to give you $1 million answer. No, I think it's a very broad, question, and I think it really depends on the situation. And I think in some situations, you have at the end of the day, in my opinion, especially as a woman, you don't want to compromise who you are and what you believe in and your values. So if that means that you have to call someone out, and it's not positively received, but you feel good about yourself the next day. And I understand everyone has life circumstances, and it doesn't mean you can walk in the door and say, I quit, and you've got a family to feed at home. But I do think, if you're in a situation that's toxic or that is not fulfilling to you, eventually that will do more harm to you than good. So, I often say this, in any kind of work situation, there's a difference between a mentor and an advocate, and I think I said this last time we were having a conversation. And if I found myself in a situation where I felt like someone is doing something that is harmful to me and I don't know how to handle it, my first step or course of action would be to go to my advocate, because hopefully the advocate is someone who is senior to you or has more power to you or more influence than you, and they can help guide you through this situation, whether it's guiding you on how to speak up about something, or or guiding you how to remove yourself from the situation altogether. I mean, in any scenario, it's all about changing. You've got to look out for yourself, and sometimes the best way to look out for yourself would be to leave, and other times it's to be that truth and that voice of power. And sometimes it's easy to do it by yourself, and other times it's easier to do it with a crowd. And I think all of the things that we're seeing now in the Me Too movement and the this coming to life in the film industry is because it's not just one woman, it's a crowd of women, it's a chorus of women that are all speaking up together. So, I guess in kind of going back to the original question, I probably would try to see if I could find some allies and other people that could help guide me, and see if they're willing to be as confident or as bold, as a group versus as an individual, be bolder and kind of speak up and try to say something. The other thing is, there's a lot of value in having men as allies in this fight, right? So, finding a man to help support your argument, or support your case, or support your, however you feel that you've been abused or disrespected, I think can go a long way in kind of creating some sort of change.
I think to that point, oh, now I'm too loud in the mic. I think to that point, network is really everything, but like the quality of your network means a lot as well. So I think if you're, and I mean, I'm speaking from the perspective of an artist, but if I'm building my team around me as people who value myself as like my personhood and my existence, then I'm going to be building a strong team around me, and that kind of, as I'm moving through my career, hopefully I'm not going to really have to deal with that, because that stuff's going to be filtered away. And I also feel like a lot of the blackballing is oftentimes framed within a power imbalance that doesn't necessarily exist. Like there's never one shot that's going to take you there. Right. It's a series of you working through it and showing up every day and doing what you have to do and being present. And if one person is going to try and dissuade you from that with a power threat, it's never one. There's never just one no. And if it's a no,
right? Because there's 1,000 no's.
There's 1,000 no's. It's been a decade of.
Why would the one mean anything?
It's just one more no, and that's fine.
Don't
you can
settle
take
for just one no.
But I think to your point as well, I think that was very eloquently said, that at the end of the day, it's just what is the loss that you can stand. I mean, you might get a short-term career gain, but what is that going to cost you emotionally, and what is that going to mean 10 years from now if you're not able to maintain that work because you've kind of self-destructed, because you've devalued yourself. So you always pay a price. It's just what is that cost, and how does that enter into it when you're negotiating it. But yeah, network. Surround yourself with good people.
Do you have anything to add, Ariel?
No, I think no.
I like that. I thought the same thing. Like, it's about who you have around you, and there's always another opportunity. And it might be that you walk away from that opportunity and you find like the one that really fits you in the right way, that makes you feel good about who you are. You're not worrying, oh my God, what's going to happen today when I go work with this other person. So,
you know what, actually, career is sort of like a marriage, right? If you decided to get married, you're in it. And so as a newlywed, I'm learning all kinds of things, but I noticed that upsets become, like you just said, I think there's a really beautiful way that you framed that. Basically, you said, like, okay, this one no or this one bad thing is almost practice for the next time. It's like, why do some things happen to some women and the exact same thing doesn't happen to the next woman? I think a lot of it has to do with how the situation gets managed, handled, etc. So, I mean, I think there's also like a long learning in that, And yeah, the music industry, we've yet to really tell our tales, and we haven't. We're being called out for not doing it, and there's lots of reasons why. But I think for those of us that are not in our first years of our music career, it's an interesting purview to have. You know, what used to make me lie in a fetal position on my floor in my office no longer upsets me at all. You know, that just comes with like age and knowing how to handle people. So there's something in that experience.
I recently read an article about how a lot of young women, girls and young women, get these cues from an early age. Like, you know, you go into a musical instrument store and they don't respect you for being a musician or think you know what you're talking about. And that happens in a lot of fields, not just the music industry. But I was thinking about, and I think about this a lot with what we do with the Women's International Music Network. How do we sort of change and advocate for these girls and young women and help them see themselves in a different way? Because I think that's how this all continues to happen. Is like, you know, we don't know our power, we don't know our ability, because we're told, oh no, yeah, you're not going to be the producer, you know, you're not the technical person, you know, and sometimes it's not blatant at all, it's like very subtle. So
I think for all the downsides of social media, here's an upside, right? That a sassy 13-year-old girl can go in her bedroom, turn on a mic and a camera, and be broadcasting to the world. And that's her decision, that's on her. That's fascinating. That's a brand new paradigm. I think concurrently, any woman in the industry, we're now free to Instagram that or write a blog post about that or kind of express, this is what I look like doing my work, or this is my opinion. You know, I think back to what you were saying earlier about like, well, there's that person that makes all the decisions and we're scared that we're gonna upset him. You know, that's not a thing, right? And if you look at our president, the media does not favor him mostly, but he has Twitter, so he don't care. You know, so I mean, that's the one thing we could learn from that is like empower yourself to show other people what it looks like. It's not that there's no female producers. There's unlimited amounts of female producers. They're just not producing major record label music yet. Right?
yeah, I sort of feel like our job is to amplify those voices, so that those role models, especially young girls, like they can see themselves in them. But do you guys have other ideas about that as well? Because this comes up for me a lot. You know, how do we like even make girls aware of like that there are these jobs in the music industry, or like did you know that your job existed when you
I didn't know my past 5 jobs existed when I was a girl, and that's the honest truth. I think it's a few things. I think one, I totally agree with Ariel. Like we need to, for those of us that are in positions, we need to, you know, be a resource, be an advocate, like, and we need to also continue to improve ourselves so that we're empowered and we get into the positions of power where we can open the door for other women. So that's one piece. I also find, I mean, I'm on a little bit more of a business side of the music industry, and so I think we also have to realize, especially for people who are have been in the industry a little longer, that the next generation isn't necessarily going to do it the way that we did it, you know. And so sometimes you hear people, or they'll talk about how a certain young woman either showed up at work or how she didn't do the steps that, you know, she doesn't have to do it the same steps that we did because she has Instagram, so she's already, or she has the internet. You know, I mean, I had encyclopedias, so I wasn't going to really learn everything I could learn, you know. So, you know, just understanding that information is at the next generation's fingertips in a very different way. And so they may come into the music industry as an artist, or come into the workplace or the business side of it with a different perspective and a different lens, to which we can learn from. Oops, sorry, hit the microphone. To which we can learn from, and then they can also learn from us. And I think for the younger generation, they have to understand that they don't know it all, right? And so there's an opportunity here to learn things from a very different lens, or to get that wisdom that you may not have from the years of experience, and balance that out with all this other information that you're hitting the ground running with, you know, at whatever age it is that you're entering in. So I feel like we're all learning, and we're all waking up every day just trying to be the best versions of ourselves. And so if we can understand and respect and empathize that, that situation, I think, we will be able to help and pull more women forward in a way that we haven't done in previous years. And it's already starting. I mean, all of these women's movements that are happening are a reflection of, again, that kind of crowd mentality and the way that we're going to do things differently.
Yeah, I always think of the history of women in society has always pretty much been one of presentation, not necessarily of technique. So this idea that pervades, that I spoke on before about like women not being viewed as being technically capable, comes from this long historical presentation of self in society as opposed to technical. So as that starts to fade away, and I think to the point, the internet is a great thing because it kind of peels back the barriers. I feel like there was so much more involvement by women in music behind the scenes that they don't get credit for just because that was the time. So I think for young people to see that when you're a musician, like this is what it is when you sit and write, and this is what studio time is, like it's work, and this is what you do to do that. It's not here's a final finessed product and I'm all glossy and shiny and nice lipstick, and that's what that is. It's like real work. It's like training your body and training your instrument and practicing and doing all that stuff, but being able to see that and being like, okay, that's what I do, as opposed to just putting on the presentation of it and then feeling like a lack of security because you don't have anything behind that. So I think both those things together are really cool.
Yeah.
The
Totally.
youths.
I think too, like, I just finished writing an album, and I am working with a female producer. I'm working with a female engineer. I'm making sure, not just because they're women, because, I honestly, I did have to dig to find the right fit for me that was a woman, too. But, I think giving women those opportunities and seeking out women to work with, helps
When I
too.
read Lean In and looked around my office and went, oh, shoot, 5 men are working here. What the hell am I doing? I made a conscious choice. Like, okay, I'm not going to fire everyone, but luckily many of them quit. And then I thought, great, now I can replace this team with women. And it's important to me to hire women. And I think it's just as the consciousness gets raised, you begin, you can make choices like that. And that feels encouraging to me. A friend of mine who works at Universal Music, when everything started going down, we went out to lunch, and he came at me and he's like, you know what the problem is? And I'm like, oh, please do tell. And he said, the problem is you women don't really know how to advocate for yourself. He's like, every time a new hire comes into Universal and it's a man, they never accept the salary that is offered to them. They always negotiate for more money. He said, like 80% of the time, 90% of the time, the woman doesn't even say, I want $1,000 more. So guess what? When you start with less, you end up with less. And he was brilliantly going to HR to figure out how to fix that, and was looking, when there was a woman and a man in the same position, well, it makes sense if the man had been in that job for 15 years and got a raise, and advocated, versus the woman who kind of waited for the raise, they're here. So his job was now to kind of elevate the women from a financial standpoint and really explore how come this person is making this much less money. So, but it takes a smart person to do that. But he began thinking about, why is this? And he realized it's because, and this goes to how we're raised and, all of that.
The moral of that is always ask for more.
Right, right.
But I think there's also another, the next step of that is once she's very fortunate, and they're all fortunate that he's their manager, but once he levels the playing field, then it's a matter of the woman has to be educated to know that if you do not advocate for yourself, 10 years from now, that gap will be there again. Right? So I have leveled the playing field for you at this point, but now it is your responsibility to speak up for yourself and ask for what you need, in a way without saying sorry. I have a friend at work, and we're always talking about, like, we check each other. Like, you said why'd you say sorry in that meeting? You didn't, there's no reason to say sorry. So, like, being more conscious of, like, not saying sorry, not, like, trying to make yourself small to make someone else feel good. And it's not about being, like, brass or disrespectful. It's just about asking for what you want and what you feel is, and having your reasoning for why you're asking for it. Not because today I feel like I need a raise, but I've done X, Y, and Z, and therefore I deserve it the same way the next person does, right?
And a reason is not a justification,
Exactly.
right? There's a huge difference there.
And if you get a no, it's not the end of the world. It's just one more no.
Yeah. Put it on the list.
And then maybe you change your argument a little bit next time. Another thing that comes up a lot for me is I know companies in the industry that want to hire women and they can't find qualified women in the roles that they want to hire. And so part of what I've been trying to do is to try to get more interns, more female interns into companies, and encourage more training programs for women. But that it goes even deeper than that. Like when women are in college or looking at this possible career choice, they have to think like, oh, well, maybe I want to work in that part of the industry. And unless there's awareness about that, then they don't even think like, oh, I'm going to apply for that internship. Do you guys have any thoughts about how to create more awareness for women to enter into all facets of this industry? I know there's groups like this one, and like some other ones, Women in Music, Sound Girls. They're like awesome at, bringing girls and women into the industry. Do you have any other thoughts about that at all?
What was the question?
Just about how to create more awareness in girls and young women about different career paths and the idea of entering the music industry.
I think that all of that starts so young. There's a reason why all publicists mostly are women. We're natural communicators. And the joke is publicity is like the ghetto for women in the music industry. All PR departments at every record label tend to be women. I don't think a lot of little girls are nurtured. Like, okay, you should, yes, you should play piano, but should you, learn to produce? I think it's the way that we are raised. It starts really young. The one good thing about all of these American Idol and The Voice and these crazy reality shows is I think we're seeing more talented females and DJs and MCs and, women doing things. I think that's going to change. It's going to change a lot of things. I think it goes back to media. If you look at Black Panther, the young teenage sister is the brilliant, creative scientist. Think about how many young girls that's going to influence. I think we just need to see more badass women in the industry doing things visibly.
Okay, that's the name of my new website, Badass Women.
Doing things visibly.
Doing things visibly.
Very, very, rolls off the tongue. Yes.
I totally agree. I've been trying to think of ways to expose, students to more careers, and one of the things that we're going to be working on with our organization is like a video database of women talking about their jobs and like what's cool about them, how they got there, what you need to do, what kind of personality maybe you want to have, or different traits that would be successful in that job, and then work with teachers and schools to just share that information, because once again, internet, it's all good.
Right. Doesn't every time you go to a luncheon and a woman is speaking, she's like, my mother was told she could either be a wife or a wife. That's what she was told. And so, right, a secretary or a nurse. So we have come very far. Right. There's more options, but you're right. They need to be wider.
I also think this is an industry that, let's just be very clear, like a woman that wants to be in this industry is very different than a woman that wants to be a doctor, because a doctor, it's pretty much planned out for you, right? You know the steps that you need to take. My recommendation for any woman that wants to be in the music industry is just be open, because there are so many jobs that you never could have imagined or you didn't know existed, and there are jobs that are going to be around, are going to be hot jobs in 5 years that don't even exist today, right? So this is truly an industry where, networking and being out there and coming to events like this and being in organizations and, coming to different organizations and just saying hello can go a really long way. I know that there's a woman that I met at the last Women in Music event who interviewed for a job at my company like 2 weeks later. So, you just have to be open, and this is one of those industries where it's really like the squeaky wheel gets the oil, the grease. I was about to say the cheese.
The grease.
And that was all wrong.
It's who moved my cheese. It's different.
Yeah,
right.
but you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Like it is one of those, industries where you really have to kind of put yourself out there, no matter what your role is, even as an artist, right? I can,
Yeah.
you could talk about that.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that. I'm probably
why I have
my
a
weakest.
job.
Yeah, it's true. She's great. Yeah, I think also just having more awareness, like I don't even know how you teach this, like unless you're the parent or I don't know, but having more awareness about what is it like in your personality that translates really well into what kind of job. Like, are you a really great communicator? Do you have, that really kind of strong sense to be able to go and engage with people, which is needed if you're trying to like pump yourself, if you want to work in PR, like what are the kind of personality strengths that lend themselves really well to that? Because where I might have personality strengths and you can always build them, but it's not something that comes natural to me. Someone else may have, and that can serve you really well. So understanding kind of that about yourself, and then the internet is amazing. I can't even fathom every time I see my little nephew's like 3 and he's on an iPad and it's what is your world right now? But I think that just the sheer amount of information and visibility is so different now for this generation than it was when we were
5
kids.
years ago,
Even 5
right?
years ago.
Yeah.
So I think the visibility of that is there. I really think it's less about, what do I want to be when I grow up? But like kind of what attributes do I have that work well, that are going to work for me in doing what I do? I feel like I fell off topic, but
No, that's good. But I do sort of feel like in the music industry, we're kind of making it up as we go along.
I was going to say that too, right?
So it's not like you're right. There's no like, okay, first you go to get your bachelor's and then you go to medical school and then you do your resident. There's no path. There's no rules.
Yeah.
So, I always, when I talk to students, I'm always like, the most important thing you can do is show up.
yeah.
Like, I can't even tell you how much opportunity I have gotten from just showing up. And
That's true. I think we would probably all
Yeah.
say that here.
yeah, because most people do not show up.
No, they don't.
And
They don't stay late either. Like stay late. The boss eventually comes out and asks you to, the stories, right? Stay late.
So,
Postpone joy. These are real.
Postpone joy, but not for too long.
Yeah, not sure.
So I want to share kind of a couple of things that I pulled off the internet about what you can do if you encounter sexist behavior, and then I'm going to open up for some questions from the audience if anyone wants to ask us a question, and then Asha's going to play for us a little bit and share some of her music, which we're super excited about. So these are in no particular order, and they're sort of culled from a variety of resources. What can you do? Number 1, surround yourself with other women and don't see them as competition, but rather as a network of strength and mutual support. Because, you tell us something that happened and we'll be like, oh yeah, what about, we know this guy, he can help you. Number 2, people are always going to come up against adversity. Find the people who are encouraging and believe in you, because they will help you keep going. Right? Number 3, go to shows of the artists you want to see on festival stages and support the booking agencies of artists that feature diverse rosters. Good one. Number 4, we need to remember to trust our own voices and those of other women, so it's worth examining our own biases and breaking through conditioning that might tell us to value men's voices over women's, because we do that to ourselves, right? Number 5, hire women. Hire minorities, hire female interns. If you are hiring for 2 positions, make sure one of them is a woman. Number 6, share successes of women in the industry, which we talked about. Number 7, seek support from your female peers. If there is anything that the Time's Up and Me Too movement have shown us, it is that there are strength in numbers. Strength in numbers. I don't know what number I'm at. 8, maybe? Call out behavior. If you see something that's not right, just be like, that's not cool. Number 9, document everything. So this was like a serious issue. And if you, keep a journal, you see something happening, somebody sends you emails, keep those
Save 'em.
emails, save those emails, because that can come in handy later. Especially if it's like, someone else's word against yours.
Or it's criticizing your
Um,
outfit. What? Right.
And finally, I just had, powwow with other women in the industry, which is what we're doing today. And there's a lot of other resources out there. I think I mentioned a couple. There's womeninmusic.org. There's Sound Girls. There's, hang on, I have a little list here. Did I not put, oh yeah. There's an organization called the Feminist Majority Foundation. It's at feminist.org, and they have like a ton of resources up there. Obviously Time's Up and the National Women's Law Center, so if you do feel like you have like a legal issue, they can advise you and possibly help you find affordable legal counsel.
Oh, cool.
So does anybody here have a question? And if you do, come up so that we can put you on the microphone. And if you don't, oh, you do, come on up. And tell us who you are too. Sure.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I have a question, and I don't really know how to necessarily solve it, the few jobs that I have had at this point, but in one job in particular, I had male and female authority figures, and I found one of them to be, I looked up to, I idolized, and another one really talked down to me no matter what I did, good, bad. It's how she was with past people who were in my position, people I now know after who have filled in for me, who ask me for advice now, and I never know what to do about it. So yeah, just advice on that, how to approach those scenarios.
So you're saying that you weren't respected by this person?
Yeah.
Didn't really have to do with you being a woman, or?
It sounds like this
hope it
person
wasn't.
didn't respect anyone.
Didn't-
It's just like a horrible person.
Didn't, but I always
Right.
my mom being my mother, being like, it's an older woman, you're younger, it does happen. And I'm like, is that the case? And how do I address it?
Not even address it, but. One of my best friends for 20 years, went away on a vacation together, and we were talking about the worst jobs we ever had. It was like, what was the worst job and she starts describing this horrible office, this horrible woman screaming at her all day and yelling, and she didn't like anyone. It turned out we had both worked for the exact same woman. It's probably who you're talking about. But anyway, there's just some people like this.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a decision you make. I don't think that walking into her office and pointing out that she's a raging bitch is going to change her or help it in any way, right? I think it's a question of, and how I framed it was, what can I learn from this person about what I will not do when I am in a power seat? How will I not treat my interns? How will I not ask someone to get me coffee? How will I not whatever the heck it was? And so it sucks at the time because you just feel so belittled, and that's when I think you make an Erica decision and you go, no job is worth this.
Yeah, essentially as to what I did.
Right. So
She was a big part of it, sadly, but was a big part of it.
But I also feel like if an organization is allowing somebody to do that for a long period of time, they're like enabling that behavior, and there's probably not really anything that you can do about it because they've already basically told this person it's okay to be like that. I would definitely lodge a complaint because, maybe if enough people do, it might change somebody else's life.
I hope they pick up on it on themselves. I mean, they've gone through so many, and it has been young girls in the position as like an executive assistant, a receptionist position, but they've gone through tons of young girls.
Yeah, well, I bet some of them are going on Glassdoor. I mean, this is the other thing. It's like you can't get away with it forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're glad you're not there anymore.
Yeah, well chosen.
Do we maybe have one more question before we kind of change our little set around here for a second? No? Okay, well, yes,
sorry.
go
I was
no,
just going to
ahead.
add one more
Yeah.
point to the list
Yeah.
of the top 10, 12
Yeah,
list that
whatever
you
it
shared.
is. 11, I don't know.
I do think there's something to be said about, and you kind of used an example where you did this, something to be said about looking at the landscape of the room and then figuring out how you can change it. So you looked at your office and you were like, it's all men. Then you hire more women, and then you look and you say, who else is missing, right? So do I have women of different ethnicities in here? Do I have disabilities represented in here? Do I have different, sexual orientations represented in the room? Like, the more diversity you can bring into the space, the better. You're going to be the better, the team's going to be the better, the music or the work is going to be, just because it's a diversity of thought. But it also will open your eyes to other things and allow you to learn on the job outside of just the day-to-day what you have to learn, just learning about the different people. I've always been the type of person where the more I can learn about just who the people are that I work with, the more, one, invested I am in the work that we're doing, because now we have a relationship, but then also then I start thinking about things differently, right? I start thinking about, are we creating a space that's welcoming to any and everybody? We talk about music, we're talking about a very large audience space, right? Is every type of fan out there going to get a chance to be exposed to what it is that I'm offering up? And if not, what am I missing? And who's that voice I need to bring in the room to make sure that that's covered off on? So yeah, just make sure that there's diversity within the women, diversity within the orientation, everything, so.
I was just going to say that we all have, however big or small, we all have a little, at least, sphere of power and influence in our own lives that we can execute. And if we try to be as reflective on our own bias and our own perceptions of things and engage as truthfully and honestly as we can influence that sphere. And if it's something that we all did, I think that, that movement, like diversity would grow, not understanding would grow, reason between differences would grow, and you would understand like those differences are literally, they're the first thing you see, but they're really the last thing that you should care about. Like, you might be presenting, I might be presenting as a certain way, and that's the first indicator, but it's really has very little to do with all the crazy stuff in here.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you guys for being here. And just give us just 1 second, and we're going to reset and have a little music. Hi, everybody.
This is the graceful bit, getting myself arranged. Kind of wish I wore pants, actually. The power on? Is the volume up? Very technical fix. We good? Hey guys. So yeah, I'm gonna play a couple tunes. I'm just working on my first EP right now. We're just in the final stages of getting stuff done. So a lot of these songs are brand new and brand new for me to play and sing out loud in front of other people that aren't my apartment walls. So this is a song called Fade. It's about how totally unfrustrating being a musician is and working on your job is. Wait, it's not my time to fade. I've been losing steam, maybe I gotta find another way. This one's making me crazy, sitting on the hands of borrowed time, feeling every moment pass me by. Oh, it makes me wanna cry. Hard work don't cut it, I'm still getting nothing. Impatience is not a crime. Tied up and weary, I'm wasted, but seriously, sell me a sign. Oh, 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 please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. Oh, oh, please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. I'm fading from here. Stop. I need a break. Made too many mistakes, got me wondering, do I really have what it takes to pull myself out of this slump? It only takes one half-hearted suggestion to pull me in the wrong direction amongst a kind of wishes our black souls could chew to pieces. Hard work don't cut it, I'm still getting nothing. Impatience is not a crime. Tied up and weary, I'm wasted, but seriously, sell me a sign, sign. Oh, 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 please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. Oh, 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 please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. I'm fading from here, or am I in the clear? Have I paid dearly enough to rise up out of this? Ooh, 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 ooh. Hard work don't cut it, I'm still getting nothing. Impatience is not a crime. Tied up and weary, I'm wasted, but seriously, sell me a sign. Oh, 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 please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. Oh, 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 please just sell me somebody, sell me a sign. Sign, 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 a sign. I'm fading from here. because I can't hear like anything. Is that okay? Is that going to screw up the sound? Okay, just because I was guessing a little bit there. How good are my vocal takes? We'll find out. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. It's okay. I'll double myself up. Thanks, Seth. So I released the single first with the help of Ariel and Cyber PR. Oh, you're Holly. So I haven't actually met anyone in person before today. So, yeah, you look different than your voice because you have a face rather than just a sound. I think I'm funny, and that's what matters. Anyway, so we released this back in the fall, I think, November or something like that. So there's a video and a song for it up on the YouTubes, and you can find it on my website, which has my name on it. And if you're on the internet, then you know how to use that stuff. So this is called History. Is best for me, but in my history I don't do right. Roads in my head spill out in reverse till I lose the fight. Come from a work to distraction, it turns to ashes and I'm left burned. What do I think? Do I think I deserve this? All of the worst bits left behind. What do I do? It all keeps building inside my head. I'm a fool to think that I would get it right instead. It pulls me under. I am no thinker, I'm no preacher, I am no wise man's friend. Till I get it right. I'm no thinker, I'm no preacher, I am no wise man's friend. I'll think it over till I get it right. I'll think it over till I get it right, get it right. Throw back to a time in my life when I put up a fight, or did the fight break me? And I know it's absurd only to define wars by the waste of words. So confirm, I work to distraction, it turns to ashes and I'm left burned. What do I think? Is it all just faces, blank empty spaces left behind? What do I do? I keep spilling inside my head. I was fooled to think that I would get it right instead. It pulls me under. I am no thinker, I'm no preacher, I am no wise man's friend. I'll think it over this time. I tried to get it right. I tried to get it right. Get right, get right, get right. It pulled me under, but I am no thinker, no preacher. I am no wise man's friend. I'll think it over till I get it right. I'm no thinker, I'm no preacher. I am no wise man's friend. I'll think it over till I get it right. Oh, I'll think it over till I get it right, get it right. So we were talking a lot about voices today. Sorry, I'm falling off my chair. We're talking about a lot about voices today. This is another single off the project that came out December, I think. And I think it's really awesome that we had something like that, and we have to have more conversations like this with more engagement and more involvement from many voices, all of the voices, because when you put a bunch of voices together, they sound pretty powerful. And I think we could all use some of that in 2018. Looking back, now it's over and done. Took our chances, wound up running out of time. And love, so much easier living inside these lights. So much easier living inside these lights. And the sound of our voices breaks through the dawn. All questions hanging on to broken vows. We forget how we started a spark and let it burn out. It's so much easier living inside these lights. So much easier living inside these lights. Do you put up an act the way you did before? Could pretend that I care, but the instinct's gone. Where did it go? I don't know. So much easier living inside these lights. So much easier living inside these lights. And the sound of our voices breaks through the dawn. All questions hanging on to broken vows. We forget how we started a spark and let it burn out. It's so much easier living inside we said we would stay friends till the end, the end, the end. Till it came and went and left us stranded. In the sound of our voices breaks through the dawn. All questions hanging on to broken vows. We forget how we started a spark and let it burn out. It's so much easier living inside these lies. So much easier living inside these lies. These lies. These lies. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to do the last two. I'm just going to do them back to back like a racer or something. What's the one where you pass the baton? Relay? Is that a sport? I know all about the sports. So I'm very educated. So I'm going to do mountains for those of you who don't know. I'm originally from Alberta, which is in the Rockies, beside the Rockies. It's the passageway into BC, which is like the nice part of Canada. There's like prairie and nothing, and then there's pretty mountains and ocean. So, and I haven't lived there for, oh my gosh, like a decade now, because I'm old, and every time I go home, I can just smell the fresh mountain air. And I think there's something for any of us who've moved really far away from home, that there's always a little bit of nostalgia, and so mountains is about kind of that struggle and saying goodbye to mom and all that stuff. And fall is after that, and I'm not going to say anything about it because I don't want to. They will be on the EP. Take a look at my face, a lingering final embrace. I'm pulling roots up, I'm leaving town. What place in the world is there for a broken one? Dreams are not what they seem, floating around till all you believe leaves you with your frozen mountains. Look the other way, or she'll leave you. I am made of clay, frozen pathways lead you astray. Oh, I try to leave you. I am made of clay. Oh, I am made of clay, of clay, of clay. Her second valued opinion don't hold more than 1 week or more. Now I'm sitting in the dark waiting for another heart with a hole bigger than yours. Dreams are not what they seem, follow me now. Yeah, is it worth it? Yeah, am I indifferent? No, 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 no. Do all you believe? Oh, all you believe leaves you with your frozen mountains. Look the other way, I surely do. I am made of clay, frozen pathways lead you astray. Oh, I try to leave you. I'm made of clay. Oh, I am made of clay. Oh, I'm made of clay, of clay, of clay. Have I ever known a voice like yours? Have I ever been as insecure as when you reach for me? I grow weak, yes I do, yes I do, yeah I do. Crave release, but I'll never speak. So would you for me? 'Cause I've never been in love. I thought it was all made up. Baby, would you fall with me, fall? Come on, baby, just fall with me, fall. I've never been so sure. You don't have to prove me wrong. Come on, baby, just fall with me, fall. Come on, baby, fall with me, fall. Oh, baby, fall with me, fall. I cannot run away from this confusion. You hold every hour, minute, second till my mind is ill at ease. Then you reach for me, I grow weak, yes I do, yeah I do, yeah I do. Crave release, I'll never speak, so would you for me? 'Cause I've never been in love. I thought it was all made up. Baby, would you fall with me, fall? Baby, just come fall with me, fall. I've never been so sure. You don't have to prove me wrong. Come on, baby, just fall with me, fall. Come on, baby, just fall with me, fall. Oh, Thank you guys so much. Thanks for the event. Thank you, Laura, for organizing everything. Thank you, Seth, for the sound.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks. That was wonderful. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. And check out the Women's International Music Network. Our website is thewomen.com, THEWIMN.com. Thanks a lot. And thanks, Adorama, for hosting.